I want to buy a copy of Bone Storm. Here's 99 cents.
Allow me to summarize the proposed transaction. You wish to purchase Bone Storm for 99 cents. Net profit to me, negative $59. Oh, please take my $59. I don't want it. It's yours.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I'm sorry for the late video today. I am feeling very under the weather. Perch and I were already supposed to have recorded this video, but I had to cancel on him, but he's been very generous with his time and rescheduled. So I am getting it out, within a few hours of when I plan on getting it out. Obviously, if my condition worsens, you might see less video content on the channel, almost guaranteed. But it feels like I'm doing a little bit better, and hopefully, God willing, I'll be fine in the days ahead. So today we're going to kind of talk about some of the spikes in indie comic sales. And obviously the Poobah of comics is going to be my go-to for something like this. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm sorry to hear you're under the weather, but glad to talk to you, and always a good time.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough. It feels like the whole house is under the weather. Everyone's like achy, and we got all kinds of stomach ailments. Like I said, it feels like we're coming around. And I do want to say this before we kind of get going. If you're enjoying the content and you love comics and you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? This is the place to subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this content. Give us an enormous thumbs down if you don't. Either way, we do want to hear your feedback in the comments section. Perch and I will be perusing that and answering those questions in comments.
Absolutely.
Now, Perch, we made a video not too long ago about how now was a big opportunity for indie comic creators, indie comic publishers to kind of take advantage of the market. DC was pulling back. Marvel was pulling back. There's going to be less stuff out on the shelves to kind of drown out your new independent titles and properties. And it feels like, is that what's happening? Am I missing something here? We got Spawn 309 sales at 70 or orders at 70,000. Spawn 310 orders at 310 at over 100,000. The Department of Truth from James Tynion coming out from Image. Those orders are for over 100,000. We only find them when they're dead. Was that Al Ewing on Boom Studios? Over 75,000. I think Seven Secrets might have been over 50 or 45. It feels like there's an enormous spike right now as far as orders, and it's not just number ones. Like I said, with those Spawn issues, what is this all about? Is it because Todd McFarlane's introducing Gunslinger Spawn and Ninja Spawn, or do you think it's more than that?
No, I think it's more than that. I think that there are some indie creators that are taking advantage of the moment and using it to kind of get their books out there at a time when there's a little bit less noise in the market. I think it's also fans and customers who got they basically got starved off of some of the comics they'd just been collecting. And I think, if anything, I think that's the biggest factor is you have people who like comic books, want to read comic books, and in many cases are just buying comic books out of habit. They were just keeping going with their runs. And it was like going off of a drug. You had the big two halt sales for a little bit of time, and then you've had kind of a very slow restart. And so it's woken a lot of customers up to say, maybe I want to collect something else. Maybe I want to go back and actually make sure that I'm enjoying what I'm paying for. And so I think you see a lot of interest in other titles. So I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, it sounds like the orders on some of the other more established, I think Undiscovered Country is still within its first 10 issues. Sounds like those orders are going up. We definitely know the orders for Something is Killing the Children, James Tynion on Boom. Those have been going up. And I know that specifically Boom Studios had a lot of initiatives to go out there and support comic retailers about returnability, things like that. I think Image did as well. Do you think those programs are enabling comic shops to maybe go pump a little bit more money into these titles that normally maybe would have been dispersed out with the big two?
So I'm not sure about that. So my short answer would be yes. But I think now, having talked to other retailers, the returnability factor for the retailers is not as big as I thought it would be. And I think a couple reasons behind that. I think a bunch of retailers are just trying to figure out how to open, and they don't necessarily want to deal with the noise. And as well, I think
you have to pay for them. You need the money later.
Yeah, you still have to pay for them. So it's money out front now, which you don't necessarily have. And then there's enough stories out there about how getting your money back from Diamond may not be the fastest, easiest thing. So I think there's concern there. But what the returnability did do is it in some ways made customers more aware of returnability than they have been in a long time. People are suddenly starting to talk about it. Those press releases went out everywhere. And so for readers, they'll see this and they go, yeah, I want to put my dollars somewhere where it feels like they're supporting the local comic shop, or it feels like the comic company is trying to do the right thing. And it's good PR. And when you take that on top of maybe a creator that's unchained to do what they want and a story hook that sounds good, I think all those things add up and it helps.
I think this is only going to get bigger, and I'll tell you why. We have discussed this on the channel where DC Comics were reevaluating their exclusive contracts. We just got a gossip column in Bleeding Cool kind of talking about how DC, because they're courting more the digital and the graphic novel market out in bookstores rather than in the direct comic book market, in their opinion, the creators have less cachet. It's more about the characters that are driving it. So they're going to be putting lesser known creators on these titles and driving them to those markets. So we're going to see less Jeff Johns, less Scott Snyder, less Tom King, Brian Michael Bendis, all that on like DC titles. So these guys are going to be freed up. I think they're going to have an opportunity to go out to some of these publishers or even into crowdfunding and really get some original IP out there, because their plate isn't going to be full with just DC and Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think some of these people will, and I think it's like all things. This entire pandemic, what's happened during the year, has been a wake up call for people in different ways. And one of the ways it has been for creators, I think, is to say, I need a little bit more control over my life. So, the way you do that is not by working for the big two on contract. The way you do that is by having your own IP and being able to have a little bit more flexibility. And I think for a lot of creators that were maybe thinking about it, but a little uneasy about doing it, it was the push. It was, hey, things are shut down. Hey, my deal isn't quite as good as it used to be. Hey, I've got some more time now, or things are uncertain. I have no choice but to explore this option that I've been putting off for a while, and they have. And so I do think in 2021 you'll see more of that. I mean, in general, the comic industry is changing and moving. The question for me will be, who's got the business excitement and sense to say, I don't want to be working for an indie. I want my indie to be number one. I want my who's going to build up their company to be the new DC or the new Marvel? Who's going to want to really go after that? Image has tried kind of twice in their history to really get that spirit when it was first founded, and then later with Kirkman, really wanted to go and compete and play with the big boys. And since that time, you haven't really seen any companies go out with that mission statement of, we're going to topple the leader. And I think as 2021 rolls around, some of these companies and some of these people might say, you know what, I think I've got a good shot of having the number one selling comic book. I'm going to go for it.
It feels like Boom Studios is really outside of the big three that's making the big move. I imagine they're about to supplant IDW as the number 4 comic publisher with all the hot titles that they have right now. And they're really investing in good, high quality comic book writers. And I think that's a smart move on their part.
Absolutely.
And like I said, it feels like comic book or indie comics are hot. And I think you are right. I think when the pandemic shutdown happened and all of a sudden people are like, well, I'm caught up on my Spider-Man, I'm caught up on my Batman, I'm caught up on my Superman. Is there anything else? Let me see what else is hot. Oh, there's Something Is Killing the Children's out there. Maybe Daredevil, which had lower sales that I've heard has spiked a little bit. Some of these other projects. Oh, there's a Scott Snyder Undiscovered Country project. I like Charles Soule as well. Let me go check that out. And I think people were able to go into their comic shops when it was available and maybe find some of these undiscovered gems or these hidden gems that were just waiting to be kind of mined off the shelves once they just didn't have an opportunity to get that regular fix of new comics.
I do. I absolutely think that's happened. I think there's been 2 moments that I think first when they couldn't get their comics in the midst of the pandemic. And then I think as things started to return to normal, I think there's another wake up call for consumers who are like, oh, okay, finally, I'm back to being able to get my Marvel and my DC again. What's going on? Oh, we're going back to those same storylines that I wasn't super thrilled about when the pandemic hit. And
there's going to be 5 26-issue events before the end of the year.
Yeah. And why am I doing that again? I've heard that now from a number of retailers and a number of people who, I get some comics to as well, just saying, why am I doing that? And a lot of kind of soul searching of customers say, for 20 years or so, I've believed that I needed to keep my run intact. I can't miss an issue. Even if I hate the comic, I've got to keep my run going. And as a collector, having gone through everything and seeing kind of the state of the world and all the rest, maybe that's a dumb goal. Maybe that just no longer matters, and let's go ahead and wind it up. I think we're seeing the break in many cases of this continual collector mentality, and that's going to be bad news for companies who've been phoning it in, and it is going to be very good news for indies who can put something new out.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Like I said, in Todd McFarlane's Spawn, we got Gunslinger Spawn. I think there's also Ninja Spawn. We knew that was coming up. I think he was announcing that we were going to see these different iterations of Spawn, and I think it was coming up to Spawn 300, the milestone issue, which is really exciting. The art looks cool. Todd McFarlane is pretty much gold in comic books, so it's amazing that he's on issue 309, 310. Sales over 100,000 on that 310. That is amazing. I did not think I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive that that these things are happening. It's impressive that the numbers are being put up. And again, if you can, as an indie creator, prove that you can create this channel outside of having to go and sign a contract and sign away a lot of your rights with the big two, if you can prove that you can do that, it gives a lot of hope to new creators, and it just shows people there's another way to do it. And so, you know, this is good news. In general, this should make the big two, you know, sharpen their pencils a little bit and maybe be a little smarter and quicker about how they do things. It should provide other avenues for creators, and it should provide more books for readers, and all those are good things.
Yeah, it's interesting kind of thinking about all the stuff that's been happening out there. Obviously, you mentioned Robert Kirkman. He's been kind of like, for several years now, he's the go-to indie creator as far as probably the number one guy, just all the amount of properties that he's had. Specifically, The Walking Dead was such a mainstay and top seller. One of the few comic books outside the big two that was regularly in top 10 sales. And he just launched a new series. And I like what Skybound, I like what Kirkman, I like what Image do with some of these launches, specifically with his, where they try new things as far as the launch. I think was it Oblivion Song?
Yes.
No, it was Die, 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 where they went out there. They didn't even announce it. And then they realized that was a bad idea. So they didn't do that again. But now when they launched this latest one, Firepower, it came with like a 100-page graphic novel, you know, to get you into the story. And I believe they shipped 150,000 issues of the free comic book day comic, which was essentially, I believe, #1. And I think that was really smart. It's a cool ninja comic. That's always going to do well.
I think you're seeing some more experimentation. You're seeing people being able to do different things with how to get the comic out there, and we're seeing some creative approaches to the pandemic. Not all will work. Half of them or more will fail, but it is giving people a nice blueprint of what to do. And right now, if you're a comic creator, you should be focusing on being really aware of what's happening in the industry, and take a business class, get yourself prepared. Check what you're signing up to do. Don't sign insane contracts that look like they were written by a computer purpose.
That was embarrassing.
Yeah,
I think a couple of people actually signed those, and I do feel very bad for them because.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking for work, for people who are listening, Wes and I are talking about the LLC Terrific contract, which is just bonkers. I think we should do a video on that. I just don't know where to begin. It's such a mess.
Well, I will take that challenge. I will try to get up on Wednesday or Thursday. Me and you, we could talk about that because it is really interesting. Bonkers, but interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. But it should shows you that there's a lot of opportunity out in the market right now. You can do things for yourself, and there's good places to listen to. And you keep hitting on it. Fan behavior is changing, and so if you're clever and you're quick, you can take advantage of that. And I think that a lot of indie creators are.
I also like that kind of what they're doing over there at. Boom is doing the Berserker Keanu Reeves, Matt Kent, Ron Garney comic. They got that like special edition, like a bullet case or something where you can get all 3 first volumes. And I think that's like a cool way to get in there. Like those are guaranteed sales. Those are pre-sales on the first 3 volumes. I'm also really intrigued by what Scott Snyder and Tony Daniel are doing over at Image with their Noctera season or series. Everybody thought, oh, it's a crowdfunding comic. Well, it's not. It's an Image comic book. But that comic you're going to get via Kickstarter it's pretty cool. You're going to get the original art in black and white from Tony Daniel. You're going to get the original script. You're going to have it's like an intimate comic book. If you're a fan of Scott Snyder, if you're a fan of Tony Daniel, I can't imagine not that has to be must buy.
Yeah, I mean it's got a lot going into it. You're taking advantage of some people who have hot names in the industry, and I think it kind of mitigates the risk. Being able to combine kind of a traditional publishing model with ways to provide some auxiliary revenue through a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or something like that. It makes sense. It's the fusion between the two, and we talked about this like a year ago when people were saying, well, the world of comics will go over to crowdfunding, and I heard you and I both agreeing at the time that it was more likely as a fusion of the two, and I think that's what we're seeing.
And it's not only are the big two going to have to up their game because the indie creators or the indie publishers are bringing it right now, but over there on your crowdfunding comics, those guys are going to have to up their game. You got Keanu Reeves Berserker, you got a Scott Snyder, Tony Daniel, like director's cut comic to kind of deal with, and it feels like these guys are hopefully they're running professional campaigns and they're and they're fulfilled on time. We know a lot of comic creators have had issues with that in the past. But I like competition. I think that's going to, it's going to make it the people over in crowdfunding have to up their game and maybe provide some better value, because I've always thought that maybe they were a little bit too expensive for what you were getting.
Yeah, it is going to have to pay. I mean, it was a new model, and now that it's shaking out into kind of its sophomore year, you're going to see a lot of, it's going to have to tighten up and be a little bit more clear and crisp, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But you said the right thing. I think competition drives better performance, and that's what we're looking at. So we will see some new nice things coming out, and some people won't make it, but the end result should be very strong.
So it's crazy. Later in the week, we do have a segment planned where we're going to talk about 5 things I completely whiffed on that I was wrong about for the comic industry in 2020. And you're going to make fun of me, and everyone's going to laugh at me and tell me how stupid I was in the comments. But I think you and I nailed this one. We hit it out the park. We're like, look, there's an opportunity here. There's a vacuum that's happened. There's an opportunity for creators to go out there and seize the moment, and it feels like it's happening.
It does. I think it was already there, and then I think this pandemic accelerated it. So it's exciting times. I mean, we'll see some interesting experiments come out, and I'm looking forward to looking at all the successes and the failures.
Absolutely. Well, Perch, thank you so much for making time. Sorry, I was a little bit under the weather, so I wasn't able to make our first recording, but we got this one in. Hopefully people enjoy this video. And if you enjoy Perch, but you haven't subscribed to his channel, you get 2 to 3 comic book industry videos daily at Comics by Perch. There's a link in the video description, and there's going to be an opportunity to select the icon that says Comics by Perch. You can go to his channel and subscribe that way. Is there anything else you need to say before we kind of wrap this up?
No, just thanks everybody for listening. As always, appreciate you here.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.